I'm ready anytime.
You are on.
All right. Hello there, everybody. We are about 13 minutes late getting started today because we've been having some good conversation here with our small group. Anyway, our little group gathering is a portion of First Acts Church, Springfield, Missouri, southwest corner of the state of Missouri, the southwest quadrant, and we're in the beautiful Ozark Mountain country, foothills of the Ozark Mountains. Today, I have a little teaching for you and for the people gathered here for us to consider. A lot of this will just raise some questions in your mind, and I urge you to go to your own Bible and begin to study it in depth. Take a good, strong look at some of the things I'm going to tell you today. I'm talk to you about the man who Jesus told not to tell anyone. Jesus told a man to go, but don't tell. Usually we think as Christians that we are to go and tell. This is the time when Jesus told a man, go and don't tell. You find the story in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. In Matthew, it's recorded in chapter 8, beginning with verse 4. And this guy he'd had leprosy, and Jesus had cleansed him of leprosy, or at least played a role in the cleansing of it. The guy had come to Jesus before this, verse 4. He said, Lord, if you choose, you can make me clean. Now, if I remember it, I'll come back to that a little later. Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him and said, I do choose, be made clean. Immediately, his leprosy was cleansed. Then, here's verse 4, Jesus said to him, see that you say nothing to anyone. In other words, don't go and tell anybody. See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded as a testimony to them. Now, let's think about this. Why did Jesus instruct this man to tell nobody, but to go and show himself to the priest? Remember, Jesus had not been crucified, buried, and raised up. He's still ministering in Old Testament times under Old Testament circumstances. And the people were living under what was called Levitical Law. Now, I have a little cheat sheet here that reminds me that you can find the biblical law regarding leprosy in Leviticus, 2 chapters there, 13 and 14. And also in Deuteronomy, there's a reference in the 24th chapter of Deuteronomy, verse 8. Also, one of the very popular stories in the Old Testament it's preached on a lot by Pentecostal preachers especially, concerns Naaman the leper. Some of you remember that story, found in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 14, where he was told to dip 7 times in the river. And I remember many years ago, a minister friend of mine, once a year in his church, it was a Christian church, Disciples of Christ, he would preach on the topic, 7 ducks in a muddy stream, meaning Naaman had to be dunked 7 times in a muddy river for his cleansing. So the title of his message was always 7 ducks in a muddy stream. Now that'll cause you to have some mental imagery on it, help you to remember a message. So Jesus was instructing this man, obviously, to follow the Levitical law concerning his cleansing. Now, for one thing, he had to verify it because leprosy was viewed as a very disastrous kind of disease. They considered it to be highly communicable. These people were treated as unclean and as outcasts. In order for him to get back into society, he had to have some kind of proof that he was actually clean, that there wasn't something hiding, because you see, this kind of thing would even hide in their clothing. I did a lot of research on leprosy and found out that it can be ringworm. We have a medical doctor sitting here with us. He knows this better than I do. Ringworm, psoriasis, heartbreak of psoriasis. There are people, you know, some women, they have TV shows about that or commercials. Leukoderma, and what I pronounce as vitiligo. That's in Leviticus 18 and verse 30. Anyway, skin diseases. But also, research showed me that any kind of mildew or mold or fungus was dealt with in the Levitical teachings, the Levitical Law. And it was the priest who had the responsibility to clean things and to make certain they stayed clean. God spoke to Moses about these matters, those many years ago, 1,250 years before Christ. And it had to do with the welfare and the health of the people. So the priests were basically your local doctor. They were your local pest control. They were everything you can think of in this regard. So Jesus was doing the right thing in a Jewish setting to say to this man, you're going to need some proof that you are now healthy, so you go and show yourself to the priest. Now, in order for the guy to get in to see the priest, he couldn't go empty-handed. And we've had all kinds, again, my friends, Pentecostal preachers, when they're preaching about money, they say, don't come before the prophet empty-handed, because there's a reference in the scripture about that. You know, you don't show up before the man of God empty-handed. Nowadays, they use that to get you to bring your offering if you're in a regular style church that does that sort of thing. So he couldn't just walk in and see the priest. He had to have an offering. And the minimum offering were 2 birds, probably doves, but a bird is a bird is a bird. And one of them, he had to kill it, break its neck and hand it to the priest. The other one had to turn it loose. There was great symbolism in that. Now, frankly, you and I both, all of us know that breaking a bird's neck and turning another one loose was of any kind of skin disease. But there was some kind of religious symbolism involved there that was like completing the task. What would I liken it to? Those folks who belong to lodges. Now, I'm not going to get into a discussion with any of you, my conservative Christians, who don't like lodges and secret societies. That's not what this is about. But you know, some of them have a secret handshake. It's a secret password. You got to have some. It's not unusual for you to have some rite of passage, we will call it. I know some folks that they don't know the right maneuvers to be able to go to, pick one, Baptist church. Brand new person in town. Here's the church on the corner, and the town's got a number of churches, and some of them are Baptist, some are Methodist, some Presbyterian, Christian church, whatever, Catholic church. But if you're not a Catholic, you certainly don't know how to walk into a Catholic church and what to do. I had to learn, and I'm not a Catholic, but my wife and I, we were invited to be a part of a local Catholic parish, and we had to learn how to behave, so to speak, in the Catholic church. So what did I do? I invited our neighbors who were high church Anglicans to go with us the first time, because they knew as high church Anglicans how Roman Catholics would behave. So we didn't have to go in and be uneasy or be experiencing a class called Catholic for Dummies. You know, so we knew then what to do, and we've been granted permission to receive the Eucharist. Eucharist in Catholic terms means the unleavened bread and the wine. And it's not grape juice, by the way, folks. It's wine. It says he turned it into wine. You can whine about it all you want to, but it was wine. So anyway, hang on. We went down and we knew how to hold our hand and get the wafers, put it in our mouth. Now we could have gone down there like some and done this, and which would mean we're not Catholic, we're not ready to receive the Eucharist, and we just get a tap on the head and be blessed. But after receiving the wafer, and now our technician over here, Dennis Everson, he has a Catholic background, so he knows. Then you go over to the common cup, and just before you get there, whoever drank ahead of you, who's holding the cup, they wipe the rim off with a cloth, and then you take a sip of the wine, and they wipe it off, and they have it ready for the next person. We learned how to do that, but I guarantee you there are folks who don't know the rite of passage into a Roman Catholic church or an Episcopal church or an Anglican church, and there's some who don't know the rite of passage into a Baptist church. You walk in, you don't know the routine. You don't know, who does that pew belong to? Unless they have ushers who are going to take you and seat you, you may be a little uneasy because you may be sitting in someone else's seat. And you don't know the routine about offerings. You don't know the routine about songs. Do they sing all the verses, all four, or do they sing the first, second, and fourth verses, as is typical in many churches? You just don't know the routine. Also, many of these organizations and churches have some kind of proof that you can be bona fide. You remember the movie with George Clooney, "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And his ex-wife had told his little girls that he'd been run over by a train, and he wasn't bona fide. But her fiance, he was bona fide. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, most people have to be declared bona fide. And we do that, some churches with a certificate of membership, and some with baptism, some with both, and one thing and another, but it's evidence. Well, there are those that when it's time for a child to be christened in certain churches, they may bring a special offering. So this is not unusual, a bird to be sacrificed and one set free, but there was symbolism involved in it as well, which is another whole story. So Jesus told the man, go and do that so that the community will know that you are clean. Now, I told you I would back up in a little bit about this other, when he said, Lord, if you choose, you can make me clean. I studied this in depth in some very scholarly examinations of Scripture. Interesting. In some of the basic translations, it's really saying, I'm not sure you will, but I think you can. And there are people who have that outlook on God and his handiwork or his workmanship in need of a miracle, or when they're wanting to pray about something. It's like they're saying to God, God, I'm not sure you will, but I think you can. Now that's important to hold on to, because when you leave here, and those of you at home, you get ready to enter into prayer, be particular about how you talk with God. If you use great care in how you talk with your neighbor or your child or your parent or whoever, be more particular about how you talk with God. Because if you only talk to him, you're not talking with him. Talk with him. Be careful. This guy, it could be interpreted as saying, I'm not sure you will, but I think you can. Notice he said, I think you can. I'm not sure that you will heal me, but I think you can. That's disturbing to me. Too many people pray like that. The other interpretation is, I am sure you will if you can. That's disturbing too. It's like saying, Jesus, I'm sure you will heal me if you can. In both cases, when this man says, if you choose, I'm surprised. No, I'm not surprised, because God is love and Jesus loved him, and Jesus was making a point. Jesus said, I do choose. And he didn't say, and I can. He just said, I do choose, be made clean. See, that was unequivocal, right? Now, this is what I call doing exegetical looks into Scripture. Exegesis. Exes means bringing out or drawing out of a little verse or two of Scripture a lot of truth. This is an exegetical approach to the Scripture, which is biblical theology. Dennis Everson was, I accuse you of doing biblical theology this morning after your broadcast. It's a great thing to do. So anyway, having said that about this passage, I can tell you that it is very much the same in the Gospel of Mark and very much the same in the Gospel of Luke. It is absent from the Gospel of John. And Dennis did a good job on Facebook this morning of explaining why things are different in the Gospel of John. And you, those of you present here, have heard me say the Gospel of John is very unlike Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I think personally it's because John was the disciple whom Jesus loved. It was probably the last of the 4 Gospels written, had a lot of perspective built into it, and John had a determination to convince folks that Jesus was the Christ. So by then he was trying to convince not just a Jewish community that Jesus was the Messiah, but he was convincing a Greek or Hellenistic community that Jesus was bigger than Judaism, that he was the Christ. So enough said about that. I want to conclude this little teaching today with another challenge for you. I would like for you to consider finding, insofar as you can, every place in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John where the same story is recorded in all 4 Gospels. Now, I'll give you a little heads up, a little hint, I'll point you in the right direction. There are 43 episodes in the Gospels, recorded in all 4 Gospels. So you're going to have some searching to do. But if you search it out, you'll know a lot more about Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John when you finish than when you started. Find the 43 places, episodes, stories, teachings, whatever they may